The biggest life lesson I think I've learned over time, kind of live each day in the best way you can, and then importantly, enjoy the people you work with and for.
Thanks, Lar.
And use every talent they have to help you along the way. I love encouraging people, I love building people, and I love making successes out of people. And to me, that's valuable.
Do you want to give me a high-level overview of your life story? Like, where were you born?
No.
Where were you born?
I was born in San Francisco, California. My mom, Grandma O, was a story in herself. Whenever she heard something surprising, it would be, oh, for heaven's sake. My dad was very serious, very good, and I respected him an immense amount. I was a whole 5 years old when we lived here in Cincinnati. My dad was transferred, and he was a vice president with Baldwin Piano Company. In high school, I was an outgoing kid. I was a little bit that close to trouble all the time. When I finished high school, I was just so happy to graduate. And then I found out that I could join ROTC at Oxford, but go to the University of Cincinnati. So I transferred. During college, I worked my way through, paid every single penny of my college education. Bev and I met in college at UC. She was a transfer from nursing school in Hamilton, and I was in the student union, and she came in with a couple of her girlfriends. And I said, who's that? My fraternity brother said, don't even think about it because she won't talk to you. And I said, well, let me find out. So I went over and started talking to her, and she wasn't very friendly. Finally, we met. Then I started calling her, and that didn't work either. Then I asked her out. That didn't work either. And it took me 3 different times of trying to get her to agree to go out on a date. Well, first you fall in love and you make your mind up that that's what you want to do. So I went out and bought a ring. And most of my activity was always when I was driving somewhere because I could think better then. And at the corner of Kenwood and Montgomery, I was turning the corner and I said, you know, I really do love you and I want to marry you. And will you marry me? She said, what? And I said, yeah. And I pulled the ring out right there in the car. She, of course, said yes. After we were engaged, we waited about 9 months and went ahead to the wedding. When I went for the birth of Marty, I had my briefcase and I had a bunch of work that I had to do. And I went to the lobby and sat down, and that's where I stayed until somebody told you, congratulations, you know. And her mother was there also, so it was great. At the time, I was working at Baldwin Piano Company. Started out working in the mailroom. My dad was highly respected, and the vice president who I worked for kept telling me, you're going to be a success, you're going to really do well. And I kept saying to myself, is it because my last name is Olinger, or is it because my dad is a vice president? So finally I decided I have to find out. I went in one day to Mr. Mixter's office and sat down, and he said, what can I do for you? And I said, I'm going to leave Baldwin Piano Company, and I'm going to go to work for Procter & Gamble. He said, what did they offer you? And I said, I don't have a job yet. And he started laughing, and he said, well, I suggest your first thing might be to go get a job, offer before you quit to go take a job you don't have. I said, you're probably right. So I went down the next Monday to P&G, walked in the front door and went in the lobby at the general office downtown. And the gal said, well, why are you here? And I said, I'm here to get a job with Procter & Gamble. And she said, well, we're not really hiring anybody. She said, but if you'd like, I'll take your information. So I wrote it all out, sat there the rest of the day. And at the end of the day, when she left, I left. The next morning when she came in, I was sitting in the waiting room there. So I sat there for 2 more days. And finally, a gentleman came out named Mike Gray. And he said, you know, we're not hiring anybody. And I said, I understand. They've already told me that. But I'm going to stay here until somebody tells me why you can't hire me. Because I've got a 1-year-old baby and a wife, and I need this job. The next Monday, he called me and he said, we don't have an immediate opening. He said, but I'm going to make you a job offer to go to work for Procter & Gamble. We're going to offer you a position in sales, and we can't tell you where, and we can't tell you when. And you'll have to be willing to go wherever we tell you to go. 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, he called and he said, we're starting a new part of Procter & Gamble, and we want to offer you a position in sales in New York. And I said, okay. He said, now, it's Friday, and you need to be at a meeting in Buffalo on Monday. I went home Friday evening. She went through some tears of family being in Cincinnati all her life. But we decided we wanted to try it. We wanted to find out. In those days, you went out and made things happen to you. Nobody handed it to you. You went out and got it. Through the Navy and through the NROTC program, I learned what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And it required me going out and getting it done. And when I went to work for Procter & Gamble and got promoted a couple of times and started managing people, I loved it. I just loved that. And so I was very fortunate. They thought they won, but I actually won. 11 moves and 7 kids later, we were all over the place. Well, I had names for them. Okay. Like Marty was trouble because he was always testing the boundaries of what he could get away with. So Laura was Wawa Pretty Face because that's who she was. She was a beautiful young lady. Oh, Jeff was trouble. Jeff was always in trouble for something. Keith was trouble, always trouble. Brian was number 12 because he always, whenever he played baseball or any sports, he asked for number 12. Oh, Lisa Bargisa, that was her name. Lynn was special, and she was a caboose. I love my kids. You learn every time different lessons with each one. They're different. I'm done.
You done?
I'm done.
That was longer than
I'm done.
No, that was great.
But let me give you one more lesson, okay? Establish the right kind of rules and the right kind of expectations with your spouse, with your kids, so that sets an example for other people to watch and to follow. And they'll make you proud, and then you can make them proud along the way.